We talking about the post-party.
Postpartum.
Yeah, it's a real party, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Everybody's in diapers, everybody's crying, nobody's
Yes.
sleeping, but it's amazing.
It's a rager.
Absolutely.
Sure.
Yeah, all
That's
night.
How, that's how I would classify it. Yeah,
you're
bender.
bender.
Everyone's
Yes,
just on milk.
jug.
Exactly.
I love it. Yes. So we have both provided postpartum care overnight, during the day, for postpartum families.
We have.
have.
And every family is so different, and all of their needs are so different. And it's a lot. It's a major life transition. You are welcoming an entirely new soul.
Yeah. Postpartum is revolutionary because it is so counter to our fast-paced, neoliberal, hyper-individualized, capitalist society. Postpartum is inherently revolutionary to that because you are working. You're working very, very, very hard, but you are not producing for anything that our culture really finds or considers to be valuable.
Exactly.
We'll give you a couple of weeks until you're able to stand and lift and have sex again. We'll give you a few weeks until you can, come back to us there. But beyond that, it is not a valued time in our society. But we're here to illuminate that and to talk about, why postpartum is so sacred and also so revolutionary in its just entirety, and what that means for, the power of the postpartum period.
And I think that to kind of piggyback on that sentiment, the idea that rest is also revolutionary, and rest is so vital to your recovery in postpartum. So I think also rest is, the antithesis of being productive in a capitalistic society. We're not, like you said, producing for the things that we find that society deems valuable during this time. And that's such a radical act to prioritize rest, to really allow yourself to heal, to not feel like you have to get back to a lifestyle, because your life is not the lifestyle you had before, is not the one that you're going to have now. You have another human that you're now responsible for, and you have your motherhood and your parenthood that you're now coming into. So that version of yourself, it's not there. It's exactly that. It was a version of you.
Yes. I mean, honoring the postpartum period is a radical feminist act, because you are saying to our patriarchal, capitalist, white society that has the expectation that we, grind until we die, and we're never sick, and
we always say yes,
we always say yes, we always show up, we're never bloody, and we're never leaking, we're never old, we're never tired. You have to embody the antithesis of that, and if you don't, then you experience real damage and real trauma. And I think, most of the reality is that most of the time people come into postpartum already traumatized.
Oh, definitely. That, especially if you're birthing in a hospital where we've radically medicalized a process that is innately natural in our bodies, oftentimes can do free of any unnecessary interventions.
Yes, I mean, I think that my experience has been with witnessing birth in the hospital, that even the most blissful, happy, positive birth stories in the hospital have a low-grade trauma aspect to them. I think it is inherently disturbing of the birth process to be asking people questions in triage. Like, just point blank, like, being in triage is disruptive and traumatic to the birthing process. Even if it's fine, even if your nurse is nice, even if everybody's cool and you are still mostly getting your wishes respected in the hospital, there are still things that happen by nature of the institution that cause hormonal disruptions, and that cause, and I mean, oxytocin disruptions during labor, and that can impact bonding and the feeling of safety in the postpartum period. And our postpartum care in our country is just so lacking.
Oh, definitely.
And that is traumatic, you know.
Like, right after that baby is born, put them on parents' chest.
Yeah.
Do skin to skin.
Yeah.
Allow them to have that time to really get to regulate and get a sense of where they are. They're in fresh air. And, I mean, yeah, in a hospital setting, being in that stark, sterile environment with loud beeping noises and bright lights,
strangers, gloves, you know, all of those things, like, that is very anti-mammalian. And, you know, interventions have a time and a place, and that is not what we're not, you know, disputing that. And I hate the fact that we even have to, like, say that. But the reality is that normal physiological birth and postpartum is disrupted by our care systems in the United States, and our postpartum care is severely lacking. And when I, as a lactation counselor and a postpartum worker, when I go into these spaces, I'm oftentimes, you know, meeting people right after they get out of the hospital, or baby's even a few weeks old, and I'm doing lactation work, and they are telling me, you know, their entire pregnancy history. They're telling me their birth story, and they're telling me about how it's been and what all of these, like, busy things, you know, that are a part of their postpartum. They're power pumping, triple feeding. They have these really high expectations on themselves to accomplish all of this and to get baby on a schedule and
have a stash.
Have a stash, and
oh my gosh, all the
things. It's overwhelming me just thinking about it. But my approach to care in these instances is, okay, let's take a breath. Let's slow down. Let's turn off the lights. Let's get naked. Let's get into bed, or let's get into the warm bath. Let's go back to the beginning, and let's do a rebirth. Let's reenact the entrance, you know, of your baby into this world. And let's give you another opportunity to slow down and to feed baby and to connect with baby outside of anybody else's expectations. And I think that's something that's really important, specifically for NICU families. Their postpartum experiences are so disrupted. And I think we both work with a lot of NICU families. Do you want to talk about what you see?
I think that there is a high level of anxiety in the families that I support that have had NICU babies. I think I hear a lot of different narratives from families in how they deal with it, but innately underneath the surface there's trauma that comes with having your baby separated from you, and you having to pump and deliver your milk, and just like your body is yearning for your baby to be in your arms, and you don't have that access, and you may know that it is what's best for your child, but it doesn't take away the pain of your cells literally wanting you to be physically with your child. And I recommend so often for parents, when they are getting that time to go spend with their baby in the NICU, to do skin to skin as much as possible. Anytime you're with your baby, and especially when they come home, just give them that security and safety feeling, because for a large majority of the time they're in these containers.
Yeah, and they're being put on 3-hour schedules, and they have very high expectations of babies in the NICU. I think a lot of babies are in the NICU for very critical care. A lot of babies are in the NICU for reasons that they don't need to be in the NICU. And that's a little
frustrating.
Yeah,
to say the least.
I see it a lot with babies who are large for gestational age, or, which is silly terminology, but, blood sugar issues, things like that can actually be resolved by slowing down. And by going back to our natural instincts and by doing skin to skin. I tell my clients, sometimes if we're communicating, a day after delivery and they're talking about blood sugar, whatnot, I say, do not let anybody test your baby's blood sugar until you've had 30 minutes plus of uninterrupted skin to skin, because skin to skin can regulate that. And that's,
skin to skin is just an amazing.
It's medicine. Yeah, it's magic medicine, and it's something that we need to be utilizing far more in our families and in life. Doesn't it feel good to just hug and put your skin on someone?
Oxytocin.
Yes, it's huge. It's huge. But all of that to say that we are failing postpartum families, culturally and medically. We are absolutely failing them because we are not preparing pregnant people for the huge shift that takes place energetically within themselves, within their wombs, and how it impacts them going forward. And I can speak to that as someone who's had multiple postpartum experiences. And one of my postpartum experience was after a 19-week loss. And I also work with clients who are postpartum after loss, miscarriage, or even an abortion as a pregnancy, an end to a pregnancy. There's always a postpartum period. And I remember being postpartum with my first at 20 years old, and I didn't even that was a blip in terms of my recovery. I bounced back physically. I didn't feel really, really sore. I didn't slow down. I didn't even do anything different postpartum. All that I did was just feel completely alone in my body and a complete stranger to my body, and had really hard postpartum depression, and I talked about it in our episode on body image, but pregnancy completely changed my body. And it also just changed my life. I went from someone who was going to go, my plan, my last year of college was I'm going to go get my PhD in anarchist feminist theory, and I'm going to go get my PhD. I'm a smart person. I can do this. And then I am immediately shifted into diaper changes, feeding, and story times. And all of that is so important, and it has so much value and meaning. But I did not know myself anymore. And to have that be all that was available to me was just so lonely.
Well, the immense grief also that comes with the loss of your former self.
Yeah, we don't prepare people for that. Postpartum is a death.
Exactly.
And you are allowed to grieve yourself, your former sense of self. And, instead of saying, oh, I want to get back to who I am, and I want to go back to have my body back or have my mind back or whatever it is, it's an opportunity to be reborn in a completely new way. Postpartum rips open all of your wounds, especially your first postpartum experience. You are now facing generational pain. You are facing insecurities of self and lack of control. Your body is different, all of these things. But what that really is an opportunity to be born again and to create yourself from a place of real rawness.
Yeah, you're broken down to the essence of just think about the fact that you pulled a soul down through your body into your newborn baby, and how could you not be a different person after that? How could you not feel the immense spectrum of joy and of grief? Like, there's so many feelings, and I think that that's something that is extremely overwhelming for families in the postpartum period, is that there's so many feelings, and there's gratitude, and there's also a lot of struggle and sacrifice, and I'm bleeding, I have lochia coming out of me, and there is also milk coming out of me, and there's like just so many feelings, and to make space for all of them, to not actually see one as negating another. You can be immensely grateful for everything that your body did, and also look at yourself in the mirror and not know it anymore, and not feel familiarity, and that is okay.
Yeah, and it's okay to not understand your baby. That there's a lot of pressure that we put on new parents to immediately feel bonded and immediately feel comfortable in their new role as parents, which is just in reality it's not realistic. It takes some time, a lot of the time, and
also giving that grace for body feeding, chest feeding, breastfeeding. That's also, I like to compare it to like an arranged marriage, because when it comes to anatomy, when it comes to baby's temperament, when it comes to just that, okay, are we gonna latch this way? Do you like latching the other way? Like, what's gonna work? It's something that you have to work at. So don't practice. Judge yourself for it not being something that you thought was going to just be,
it's natural.
You should just know how to breastfeed. No, that's not always the case, and that's okay. That's common.
Yeah, and
it's common.
Absolutely. And if that type of feeding too isn't what ends up working for you, there are so many ways to bond and feed with your baby that are different than just directly feeding or just exclusively bottle feeding. And I think that's a whole other topic regarding lactation in general. But I always want to impress upon people, you have options. And if something isn't aligning with your intuition or your gut, and you're feeling like, okay, but my doctor told me this, my lactation consultant told me this, my midwife said this, so this is what I'm going to do, but you don't feel good about it, and when you don't feel good about something. And it's just really hard to be able to trust that, but it's really important. You have options in terms of, what makes sense for you and for your baby. And so don't hesitate to reach out. You can reach out to me at info@chrysaliscollective.me if you have feeding questions, because it is not a black and white situation. But anyway, I think there's a lot that we could talk about regarding postpartum, but there are a few things that I think are really important to touch on. And
definitely.
You talked about it a little bit already, but like rest. As revolution.
Rest. Making sure that you have some form of respite sleep. If you aren't able to get, and most likely you won't, towards the beginning, a full 8 hours of uninterrupted rest, like that's just not necessarily realistic in early, hazy nights of postpartum. So finding a way to figure out a system that works for your family in that regards, having someone come and provide some support and relief to get other things around your home kind of squared away, just having a plan for how you're going to rest before you deliver, before baby is brought home, so that you can know, I don't have to do everything. I can settle into this time and prioritize rest. Do exactly that.
Yeah, and I think that we live in a culture that is doing everything it can to number one, try to tell us that babies shouldn't be babies. You know, we are doing everything we can to fight against the physiological norms of newborn sleep. And that's also doing a massive disservice to parents by not telling them that exhaustion, while it is exhausting and hard and, you know, breaks you down, is really, really purposeful. Because when you are tired, when you are really, really, really tired, you are hyper aware of yourself and hyper aware of what everything feels like around you. It's just another level of consciousness, and through that you are given an opportunity to really turn inward and find your biggest strengths, and to know that you can rely upon yourself and that you can survive and get through this, because it doesn't last forever. You know, I mean, as a parent, you're just exhausted on like a deep level, you know, for
just in different ways.
In different ways all the time. But that sleeplessness doesn't last forever. But it does give you an opportunity to figure out what is really important. What do I really want to do? Who am I really? And what do I really need to take care of myself? And exhaustion, I think, is also like a heightened spiritual experience, because you and your baby are in it together. You are forming a love bond. You're forming a dyad in a way that you have to do it through sacrifice. And that's really the only way to get through it. And so I think that exhaustion is purposeful part of the postpartum design, but it is so important to be nourishing yourself and resting in whatever ways you can. Let everything else fall to the side to whatever extent that you can, you know.
And also ask for help.
Ask for help.
Yeah, practice doing that in pregnancy, so that whenever exhaustion does hit and you feel like it's in a way that isn't, you can't see any way out of it, then ask for help. Practice. I cannot say that enough, because I think oftentimes it's so easy to feel like a burden in the postpartum period for others, and you feel so isolated and alone, and like nobody understands you, and you live in a bubble for that period in time, because it's like the world is spinning around you. It keeps going around you while
you're in darkness.
Yeah, you are up at crazy hours with your baby, and you're half naked all of the time, and it's a very specific experience that you only get to have with your newborn, building that attachment, that bond, that connection for that period in time. So being present during that time, I think, is super, super important. And if you know that getting access to the level of presence that you want to experience in postpartum means you asking for help, then please practice asking for help.
Absolutely. And this goes for partners too, because, you know,
definitely.
While partners who haven't given birth, you know, there is a different level of like, okay, you are the main support person in this recovery, but partners are postpartum too.
They are.
And that's very, very real. And we don't even talk about that enough. Like, the male body goes through hormone shifts, you know, into parenthood, and that postpartum period should be something that, if it's a couple, you know, both of you are able to honor that. And so, you know, I don't want partners to think, oh, I'm the only one that can help. I can't rest too. You know, it's important to have people outside of just your partner that you can turn to ask for help. But that's not always the reality for a lot of people. A lot of people.
I think it's a time where you can really look to build community. The people who you could count on during pregnancy are most likely the people that you can count on in postpartum. And so pulling at those strings of community is really essential to being able to maintain your mental health and sanity somewhat, you know, during that transition.
I just have to give a shout out to all the people that brought me meals after my first daughter was born that I didn't even know. And this is just a funny personal story, but this was like back, like 7 and plus years ago now or so, where I was like, okay, I'll give going to church one more shot. And went to, like, my husband's friend was like playing in a band at a church, and I was like 37 weeks pregnant or something. And the pastor like reached out to me afterwards and was like, hey, you know, are you guys interested in like a meal train? After I had the baby, she reached out to me. And I was like, yes, if that's, I am interested in a meal train. And all of these families brought us food, and it was great food. So I just want to let everybody know who brought me food in the early postpartum days. Like, that was so inspiring. You didn't even know me. And we ended up like being a part of that community for a couple of years until we left, you know, Christianity kind of entirely. But it was so impactful. And so now, you know, not just because I am a postpartum support professional, but because I had that experience, I try to make it a point now, like, anybody has a baby that's anywhere in my circle, like, you're getting a meal, you're getting diapers, you're getting chocolate, like, you're getting my phone number so that you can text me at 2 a.m. So, like, be that person. If you haven't had a baby, you know, you might not know what it's like, but be that person. If somebody in your life, or even in your friend's life, has a baby, you don't know that you could be the reason why they are able to like get through the next day.
Exactly. And we, like, that's such a beautiful testimony to what community can do. Like, you remember that.
Oh yeah.
And it's still
yeah,
with
I'm like
you,
gonna
like,
tear up thinking about it. It was really, really, I needed it. I didn't have anybody else at that time making me food, you know, but those people brought me food.
Yeah, and we're not meant to do it alone at all whatsoever. Like, this is the first time in human history, because of the you know, way that we have things set up, that we expect a couple to make this major life transition work out with, you know, no bumps, just figure it out, right? Just figure it out. You get that 6-week checkup, that's it, and that's just how it's supposed to, like, be now. But if you think about our ancestors and how things were in the past, we exist and we thrive when people show up for us, when we have community to rely on, because we need support, point blank period, and we are deserving of that support.
Absolutely. And then I think going off of that, like, nourishment is massively important in the postpartum phase, you know, because you are, I was hungrier at postpartum.
That breastfeeding hunger also is different.
It is something else.
Yeah.
It is plates and plates of food, 3 o'clock in the morning snacks. Like, you need to be eating, you need to be drinking electrolytes, focusing on warming foods, easily digestible foods, soups, broths. I'm thinking like smoothies are great, but they're not warming, you know, to the womb. And when the womb is bleeding a lot,
we want to definitely warm it.
We need to warm it.
Yeah.
Oh man, there's so much with postpartum, and I'm just like emotional thinking about. I got good food from those people.
Yeah. Do you remember like one that you were like, this is something that I would make for somebody postpartum?
Well, I don't cook, dude. I eat peanut butter roll-ups, and but yeah, I mean, I remember what they all were. I got dirty chicken and rice. I got this like really good sausage, kale, pea pasta that was amazing. I got like so many bags of frozen chili. Like, I was eating so much chili. It was great.
That's great postpartum food.
Postpartum food. Yeah,
lots of protein, warm.
And if you are making chili for somebody, or you're making soup for somebody postpartum, throw in some organ meat. Yeah, throw in some liver if you can. because that's really nourishing postpartum. Same with herbs. That there are a lot of great herbs for postpartum. Nettles are just always, my go-to for womb support.
For sure.
Well, I think we're there.
So much to say about postpartum, but we only have so much time.
We could talk about it forever. But if you're interested, we do provide postpartum support, and so you're welcome to reach out to us. Our womb wellness work as well is designed to be supportive to postpartum individuals who need and deserve a connection to their body and to their womb during their postpartum period, which, by the way, is not just 6 weeks.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter if you are 6 years postpartum and you want to honor your postpartum experience. There is space for you here with us.
Definitely.
So you can get more information on that from our Instagram.
At the _Chrysalis _Collective.
Yeah, and you can book us for those private womb work sessions through our calendar link in our Instagram. And then you can always reach out to info@chrysaliscollective.me for more information on our upcoming offerings if you're interested in booking. Be sure to share the news, spread the word about our Empowered Period workshop that's coming up on March 17th. That is for individuals, young people, ages 12 to 17, who are in need of support learning about their periods and entire womb wellness and cycles.
Yeah, and we'll be doing that at the Heart of Houston Birth Center. We also have our next full moon gathering on this upcoming Virgo full moon, so we'll be getting into all of the energy of what it means to connect with our wombs underneath the Virgo full moon in community. We'll be hosting it again, February 24th from 6 to 8 p.m. at Eastern Glades Park here in Houston. It's a beautiful time.
It's
at
so
the end
special.
of our time together when we look out at the
it's
full moon all
amazing.
Together. It's so good.
It is. And I just want to add that the work that we're doing here is real energy work, and so we are asking for an energy exchange with the people that attend our gatherings and show up in our spaces, because in order to be able to provide this work sustainably, we have to make it our livelihood. And so there is a monetary cost associated with our moon circles and all of our sessions, but we are here as a resource, and the Chrysalis Collective, the podcast, is a free resource for you. So we are just so grateful to be a part of these spaces, and we have so much more planned for 2024, so make sure to follow us.
Yeah, and we will talk to you next time.
See ya.
See ya.